Hey friends, welcome to today's podcast. Today I'm so excited to have a guest on my show. His name is Bubba Page, and I met Bubba a few years ago, and we had the opportunity to meet, and we've followed each other, and I think I probably followed him before I actually knew him because he and his former wife were and are Utah influencers, and so they shared lots of fun things that of course I was interested in. When I met Bubba, he's a great guy. He was considering getting divorced, and now he is divorced. And the one thing I love about him is that he shares his divorce experience, which I think a lot of men do not do. Not because they don't want to, but it just feels, I don't know, more personal. Women are sharing their divorce experience, and I have a lot of male clients that are really struggling, wanting to connect with other men or just know they're not alone. And so I thought I would have him on my podcast. So I'm really grateful. Thanks so much for being here today, Bubba.
You know what? There's a lot to talk about.
Yes.
So I'm excited to be here. This is great.
Yeah. So is there anything before we get started that you want us to know about you?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a dad of 8 kids. So 6 years old all the way to 16. 4 boys, 4 girls. And that is the priority, right?
Yeah.
I have my God, my kids, the family. That's just totally in order of my priorities. And one of the fun things that I got to do is start something called fatherhoodmovement.com. Because I felt like you mentioned, guys just don't talk about this.
Yeah.
And most of the time, my upbringing, I just shoved feelings down and didn't realize that I needed to learn how to process, learn how to heal, figure out my attachment style, wonder about childhood wounds. These are elements that I was never taught, I didn't know about, until I had to go through one of the hardest things ever in my life, which is a divorce.
Yes.
So first thing, my mission is not necessarily to encourage divorce. My mission is more about healing.
Yes.
And so if people
That's
can heal,
my mission too.
There you go.
Yeah.
Because when people heal, both men and women can heal. They can save their relationships if possible, and if that's the right thing for you. Marriages, I think, can be repaired in a healthy way. And whether you're in a marriage or not right now, healing is going to be a priority no matter what. So
Yes.
I think it just applies to everybody, and the Fatherhood Movement is one of those passion projects I'm working on.
Yeah, I love that so much because it is so true. And I'm all about healing as well, right? Like in my story, I experienced betrayal and I really wanted to save my marriage. But then I realized, to reconcile, you have to have 2 people to reconcile.
Absolutely.
My healing journey was, as I healed, I was like, I need to get divorced. And it's hard. I was married for 26 years. How many years were you married?
17, almost 18.
17. Yeah, it's hard. And you have
It's a long
8
time.
kids. I was thinking of the TV show 8 is Enough. That was probably before
I
your
never
time.
watched that one, but I've heard of it.
Yes.
Yeah. And I know that there's
Yeah.
different circumstances,
Yes.
and everyone has to make their own choice, and there's no
Yes.
judgment on my part. That's one
Yeah.
thing I've learned.
Yes.
Honestly, pre-divorce, I hate to say this, but I did have a little bit of a lens of judgment on people who got divorced because I didn't understand it at
Yeah.
all. And so when I see that happen, I would probably have some kind of judgment. And I'm sad that I had that. God gave me a new lens
Yes.
to look from. And so now I can see when divorces occur, the judgment is just not a thing anymore.
Yeah.
Because no one knows what's really going on.
Absolutely.
No one has an idea what's behind the scenes, especially if it's a public type of a divorce.
Yes.
Then they only can see what is currently online.
Yes.
And that is not necessarily the full story. So
Yeah.
I have so much more compassion, so much more empathy for those who are struggling in their relationship, which I think every relationship has to have some hard things and good things. But I do believe in God's plan. Our marriage partner is here to refine us,
Yes.
which means they may challenge us
Yes.
and may poke and prod just a little bit because they know us better than anybody. And it just feels like God leverages or uses our partner, our spouse, to push us to become the best version of ourselves. And sometimes we don't recognize that.
Yes, absolutely. And sometimes it is true, divorce is the best option in our marriage because I'm a huge marriage proponent too. I believe you can reconcile, but then again, it takes 2 people. And just sometimes it's okay for your marriage to end.
Yeah.
And so how long have you been divorced?
So 2.5 years of separation, since separation, 1.5 years since the
Okay.
divorce.
Okay.
It's pretty recent.
Yeah, very recent.
I know when I talk to different people, they'll be like, oh, that's plenty of time. And others are like, it's been 6 years, 10 years,
Yeah.
15 years. For me, I still feel like the healing process is a forever journey.
Yeah.
I don't see it as it's a lifelong process, but I'm not going to use that as an excuse. I do believe part of the healing happens in a new relationship as well. And I think for the first year, I made a commitment to myself, no serious dating for the first year post official divorce. So during separation, I didn't date at all. I even still had my ring on. For me, I don't know. I recommend it. I know not everybody believes that. But
if you're not divorced, you're still married.
You're still married.
That's my opinion. So
that's a hard line.
That's a hard line for me.
That's the way I took it. And it was actually great for me because there wasn't even a temptation to start dating. I just focused on my healing and my kids.
Yeah.
And that first year was a beautiful time. It was one of the hardest years ever. But if I would have incorporated dating into that component, for me, would have been horrible. But I also think some people have maybe planned emotionally more for a divorce than another.
Yes.
Especially, and so sometimes it takes longer for one person than the other to get there. So anyway, I didn't date until the divorce was official. And then when I did start dating, I'll admit, I probably jumped in a little too fast. And it wasn't that I was seeking a deep relationship yet, and I was very transparent.
Yeah.
When we talk about dating, or when I would go out with somebody, that I was fresh.
Yeah.
But I did want to understand what the world looked like.
What your options were.
And just who was I in a dating scenario? It had been almost 20 years.
Yeah.
So I knew, and I was open and transparent. Everyone that I went out with was fine with that. But after a third or a fourth date, they were not okay with me still being not ready.
Yeah.
And so that was hard. So I've slowed way down. Because it's, one, I still feel like there's parts and pieces of me that need to progress before you dive into an in-depth relationship. I don't know, that's just me.
No, I think that's
I'm just
really
willing
smart.
to take my time and be patient. It'll come.
Yes, it will come.
I believe
but
it.
for sure, you have to pay attention. You have to listen to what your internal gut intuition is saying, because so many people jump into second marriages and it happens differently, but some sort of the same flavor. There's issues then, and problem with cohabitating the two families and blended families. That's a whole other layer. And so then you're back at divorce number 2.
Yeah.
And no one wants that. If you've been divorced, you want one divorce. And sometimes it does happen and it's fine. But so when you were considering getting divorced, what ultimately was the thing that made you say, okay, I can do this? What was the resistance for the divorce? Were you resistant at all? Thinking, because for me, I know in my own life that I was like, no, you are married forever. You don't get divorced. You figure it out. But was there anything like that, or what was the...
I think culturally, I was raised in a home with a couple that was married. My parents have stayed married. They're 50-plus year marriage. And so no, it was never even a concept.
Yeah.
Getting divorced was never an option.
Yeah.
And so that was the mentality I went into marriage with. And so I just always figured we would work it out. We'd figure things out. So yeah, I think the idea that divorce became a reality was for sure a shock, and didn't realize that was my future. Nobody does.
Yeah, of course.
And so I think some of the hardest pieces are knowing or believing what you think your future looks like. And having a vision for that, having plans, having goals, having all of this structure. But then that all changes. Looking into the future and knowing that my life is completely different than what I thought it was also made me look inward a lot more. Here's one thing that I want to help. If anybody's going through struggles or they're going through a divorce, or if you've been divorced, bitterness is your enemy. Yes. Look, I don't care what happened, who did what. To me, that matters, and I want to have compassion and empathy for you. But it's your job to heal. We can't change anyone else. And so it's up to us, no matter whatever happens. And our healing journey is our own, and we have to go into it. I believe when you lean on God through that healing journey, you can handle more when you have someone like the Almighty God, and who is the master healer. So for me, I needed both my understanding of Jesus Christ and his atonement that could cleanse, heal me, as well as some of the psychological components like understanding attachment styles. Yeah. And when I read the book Attached, which I highly recommend, I realized that I was more anxious than secure, let's say. So if somebody hasn't read the book, there's more detail than this, but this is a very... There's anxiously attached individuals, avoidantly attached, and then secure is goal. Yes. And again, there's a lot more detail to this. I'm very much summarizing. So when you have anxious people and avoidant people, that's a lot of times how marriage relationships look. One is anxious, one is avoidant, and that's very common. So I didn't realize, though, that it's insecurities that we all have, all of us, every human has them, that put us in those state of minds. So when you have more of an anxious attachment, you might have a fear of abandonment. And so you fear that person may leave. So you're willing to maybe overlook your own needs and self-sacrifice for the other person. And when you do that, sometimes you lose a part of yourself. And the more you lose a part of yourself, the more inauthentic you become. And I know for me, I tried to become what I thought she wanted.
Yes.
Instead of just becoming more of me and a better version of me, I became something that I thought.
Yeah.
And when you're avoidant, a lot of times you're protecting yourself. And so you're protecting yourself because you've been hurt in the past, or you had an upbringing where maybe you didn't have close male relationships, or maybe your father wasn't as emotionally available for you. And so sometimes those avoidant relationships, it's funny because they attract the anxious.
Yeah.
And that's this dynamic where the anxious and avoidant attract each other. But unless they heal and become more secure in themselves, it's going to cause problems.
Yes.
And so if those are people who are dating, this is important for you to know. If you're married, it's important for you to know. If you're divorced, it's important for you to know. So attachments was one of those things that I really wish I would have known well beyond years and years ago. I'm trying to teach my children even what these insecurities may look like, because what they learn now as a child will impact their adult romantic relationships.
Absolutely.
So those are pieces that I really want to make sure folks are focused on.
Yes.
And then the childhood wounding part. And I know people might think it's woo. Why is everybody talking about their childhood? Truly believe there are elements of our childhood that impact our adult life. And if our adult life has now been, and our relationships are being impacted based on how we were raised, it can create major struggles in a relationship. And until we heal those parts of ourselves, we're going to create strain and friction in the relationship. So those are some of the most important pieces that I felt is had to start healing those pieces. And that has helped co-parenting to be better. That's helped me be more open and vulnerable with my children. It's helped me love my parents even more, because all parents are going to do some things that don't.
And they're doing the best they could at the
with
time.
What they have.
They didn't, back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, we didn't know any of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody knew any of this.
No one knew any of
crazy.
this, which is one of the beautiful things about you knowing it, because you're the change maker.
Trying.
I always like that, because it's like you can figure out, okay, this is what I wish I would have known. I'm going to help my kids know it.
Yeah.
So that when they start dating and decide who they want to marry, they're going to recognize the red flags. Let's have a deeper discussion on this, right? And of course, in their 20s, people aren't so self-aware, but at least awareness is the first step to change.
100%.
And so once you can become aware of these things, you can be like, oh, I see me there. Most people want to look at their spouse and point fingers, right?
Because it's so easy to
Yes.
point. It's pointing and blaming, but you got more fingers pointing back at you.
Yes.
That's the funny thing, this blame thing.
Yeah.
So I've been able to work with quite a few folks as their coach. I'm not a therapist.
Yeah.
And when we talk, usually they come to me for business help.
Yes.
But within 2 or 3 calls, it's always life help. Always.
Yeah.
It was hilarious. I didn't realize that. I'm an entrepreneur. That's my
Yeah.
career. And I get to invest in other companies now. And so that when they came, it was business. But as we start talking about their life, because they inevitably bring up like, oh, I'm really struggling in my relationship, I'm struggling with an addiction, I'm struggling with, and I'm the first to admit I'm not a therapist. But as I coach them through some of these life principles, and a divorce, let's say, as the example,
Yes.
divorce is not just a legal process. This is an emotional, a spiritual, it's a psychological challenge. It's something that challenges you on all of those fronts. Not just a legal document that you sign one day and move on. And it's funny because the healing component requires humility. So even when a business person comes in and they're struggling with something and they're blaming, a lot of times, and for some reason they don't realize that maybe it could also be them.
Yes.
I try to help softly
Yes.
point it back to them and say, okay, so if these things you're complaining about, your partner, even a business partner, or your spousal partner, what if you were to look inward first? What are the elements that you could do differently? If they said something and it triggered you, was it really them that triggered you? Tony Robbins is famous for saying that triggers, we are the only person who can be triggered. It's because if that person said the same thing to someone else, it wouldn't trigger them.
Yes.
Therefore, the trigger is you.
Yeah.
And I look at triggers, and triggers, maybe people don't like that word, but it's a message to me from God that's saying you have something to heal.
Yes. You and I are on the same page. That's exactly what I say to all my clients. I'm like, absolutely. It's so true. It's so true.
So I just hope people so self-awareness.
Yes.
When the trigger comes, before you react, let's take a moment to pause. Let's think about how we're going to respond.
Yes.
And in a relationship, repair is one of the most important elements, right? Yeah. And I know that we struggle with that. Repair was a hard thing. Apologies came, we would apologize. But like a true deep repair that can build the relationship, to me it's like a muscle. When you exercise and that muscle tears, there's a rupture in the relationship. You need a little bit of time, but also deep, vulnerable healing to repair that like a muscle. But then when it's repaired, it's even stronger. And I think that a lot of relationships can be repaired. But that repair takes humility. It takes vulnerability.
Yes, so many people really struggle to be vulnerable.
So I want to ask.
Yeah.
So I had to ask myself, why were we not able to be as vulnerable as we could have? Why weren't we able to talk about the deepest, darkest hurts, feelings, struggles? Why couldn't we get there? And as I went through this, I would love your thoughts. I found that there's a mother wound and father wounds. And I'm not an expert in this, but for example, a father wound. Well, typically, some of the symptoms of a father wound in a woman is that they become hyper independent. They lack vulnerability, and they keep people at arm's length. So if there's a father wound, and the father wound doesn't mean that your dad was physically abusive or sexually abusive. Now, those are obvious, big T trauma that needs healing, needs therapy, that needs help. But it can even just be the lack of emotional availability. Or maybe your dad is more of a man's man, and as a girl, you didn't get his love and attention like your brothers did because he didn't know how to do that. He didn't know how to relate. And even though it wasn't in an abusive type setting, you felt lack of love. And that created those three elements: lack of vulnerability, hyper independent, and keep people at arm's length. So if you're hearing this is just on one component with women and a father wound. Let's say a mother wound as a man. Having a mother wound, again, I love my mother. There was nothing wrong in my upbringing. My parents are incredible, and I know a lot of times we hear people blaming their parents.
Absolutely, all the time.
We can't do that. They were doing the best they could with what they had, and my upbringing was beautiful. And yet, even a simple example, I'm the youngest of four, and I do this with my own children. If I wanted attention and I sought attention from my mom, but she was helping my older sibling, she would kindly have to say, okay, just hang tight. Let me finish whatever with the sibling. That's totally normal. But even that reoccurring over and over again possibly made me feel like I wasn't as loved as another sibling. Was that true? Absolutely not. My mom loved me just as much, but maybe I felt those little things that created a wound. And so unless I take some time to be self-aware and think about, oh my gosh, maybe I felt those feelings even though it wasn't intended. And even though my mom totally loved me, an insane amount. So no blame at all on the parents. And yes, some parents have made horrible choices, and some should be in jail for what they did, right?
Absolutely.
And I'm so sorry for anyone who's had to deal with big T trauma issues, because that's horrific, and it's so sad when that happens. So please get therapy. Find people who understand attachment, who understand childhood wounds. IFS, it's called internal family systems. So some therapists have expertise in that. I would highly recommend it for people who need to go through that healing. But how would you say that when someone is dealing with a mother or a father wound, like how do they get beyond that? How do they heal from some of those pieces? Have you dealt with that before?
Yeah, since I am a coach as well, I feel like for me, it's learning to make peace with your past, right? To understand, okay, my parents, like accepting your parents' weaknesses or whatever. Now, obviously, if it's really affecting you, you need to go to therapy for that. But for me, how I have helped people is just helping them make peace with it and decide, okay, what now? Because we can't change our past. So many people think if I would have done this different in our past, then maybe I wouldn't be experiencing this. No, we know that we're supposed to experience it because we are. And so making peace with it is accepting it, having so much compassion and love, and then, okay, what do we want now? And so, of course, some people really struggle and need to go down in the deep crevices of their family, right? But other people can be like, okay, I can accept that happened. Now what? Who do I want to be? Do I want to blame all my problems on my mom and dad? That's not
victim
helpful.
Mentality,
Very victim. And I'm all about empowerment. And it's okay, let's make peace with it. Because I've had to do this with my own children, make repair, because I realized I was checked out as a mom because I was in such emotional duress. I was frozen and I didn't even know it. I was in functional freeze probably most of my marriage. And so I thought I was doing all the things, but I wasn't, because I was frozen inside because I had so much pain. And I think vulnerability, the more comfortable you are with yourself, and I just think the lack of vulnerability is shame. We feel shame, so we want to blame it on everyone else. And so when we can let go of that shame and own what is ours to own, we can have a much better life and more connection with someone. Because when we believe, of course, we all make bad choices. We make stupid things, but we aren't a bad person.
Yeah.
Even my former husband, he made lots of bad choices, but he isn't a bad person. But shame tells you I'm a bad person.
Oh, for sure.
I love all the knowledge you have about all this, because for me, I'm a knowledge person. I think knowledge is power. The more I understand about what went wrong inside of me can help me make sure it never happens again.
Oh, for sure.
But the truth is, I can't prevent someone having an affair, but I'm going to do my darndest to make sure I find someone that is a loyal person. And
Totally.
so on
That's
my
more
end,
secure in themselves.
yes, more secure, and I'm more secure in myself. So I think I'm showing up different, right?
You might have different boundaries. When you have more
Yes,
security.
absolutely. I had no boundaries. I didn't know any of this. So learning boundaries, all the things that you talked about, I think are really powerful. So
Before you move on, though,
Yes,
hold on. Before
yes,
you move
say-
on, guilt and shame. I want
Yes.
to talk about
Oh,
the difference
yes.
real fast.
Yes.
So you bring up shame
Yes.
because it's a huge component
Oh,
in
yeah.
our culture.
yes,
For those who are Christians who are going to church, and
yeah,
shame is one of those things that it feels like is all over the place.
yes,
I look at this is a funny way to remember.
Yeah.
Shame starts with S and it comes from Satan.
oh, I like
Guilt
it.
starts with G and comes from God.
Okay.
And the reason I think this is my belief
Yeah.
is that shame, exactly like you mentioned, when you do something wrong, shame says you are
Yes.
you are a
Yeah.
wrong person.
Yeah,
a
something's
horrible
defective inside of you. Yeah,
But guilt is saying you did something wrong and you need to repair it.
yes.
So whether that's repentance or saying
Yes.
sorry or returning it or whatever, that guilt is good,
Yes.
comes from God.
Yeah.
Shame is evil and it comes from Satan. So
Yes.
knowing that there's different pieces and recognizing which is which, I think can give someone a huge advantage when they're moving on. And when they make mistakes, which we all will, which one are you feeling? Is it the shame that's not coming from God? Or is it God-given guilt that will allow you to know you need to heal from that
Yeah,
and repair? That to me is when couples, when they apologize,
yeah,
they feel a prick in their heart, even if they don't think they're wrong.
yes,
They go and they apologize for whatever the situation was, and they can take accountability for their part in that
Yeah.
thing. That to me is a good God-given piece, and repentance I think is part of that. The guilt, we recognize it, we feel sorrowful for it, we commit to not doing that thing again, and then we can move on from that thing. And now, will we have a scar from whatever has happened in our life? Yeah, I think God gives us those scars. They were a deep open wound
yes.
that was so sensitive to the touch, but as they healed and were cleaned out so that they can heal properly, the scar is a reminder to never do that thing again. Or that you can have boundaries for the other person to not do that thing to
Yes.
you again.
Absolutely.
So again, that is just one of those clarifications I hope people remember.
Yeah,
in their
and I like that. I like that. And anytime you feel shame, it's when you want to have the urge to blame it on someone else. I call it the shame blame trap. So yeah, so that was I liked your way of remembering it. It's so good. So anyways, we have so much to talk about. So we're going to do a episode 2. But thanks so much, Bubba, for being here today. I really appreciate all your input and knowledge. You can tell you've done your work. And I think that's important. I think as a woman, that's what a woman is looking for, is someone that's done their work. Because once we've done our work, I think it's important. Men, I think, sometimes get a bad rap for not doing their work. So I think that's a beautiful thing. Anyways, thanks so much for being here, everyone, and we will see you next week.